Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you. So the message today, what I call it, we are given what we need. Somebody sent me a bunch of engineer jokes. I'm just going to use them sparingly. And if you are an engineer, please don't take offense. None is intended. But two engineers were given the task of measuring a flagpole. And they got to the site and they realized they forgot to bring a ladder. They didn't know how to do it. And then a surveyor walked by. She asked them what they were doing. And they said, well, we need to do this. We don't have the right tools. And the surveyor said, oh. She pulled out of her purse a pair of pliers. She loosened the bolts. She laid the flagpole down. She got a tape measure, and she measured. It's 21 feet, 6 inches. And then she went on her way. One engineer looked at the other one and said, like, that's helpful. We don't need the length. We need the height. So they were given what they needed, but they didn't recognize it. Have you ever done that? You've been praying for something and the answer to the prayer is not coming in the way that you outlined it to the Holy Spirit. You know that old song, I thank God for unanswered prayers? There's something in our human mind that thinks we know best for every moment of our lives and we can figure it all out, and if God would just take my direction, then all would be well. Let me run the universe for 10 minutes and I can straighten it all out. It doesn't work that way, and it's not true. And those of you who are recovering control freaks, you might be arguing with me on that one, but I can tell you, we're not meant to run the universe. The universe is a self-correcting, conscious experience of God's expression. It knows what it's doing. And when we align ourselves with spiritual principles, even though it may not look like this is what I asked for, we are given what we need. I'm so inspired by Carolyn and Jaime and the work that they're doing in our community. Nobody asked for cancer. Nobody wants to go through that experience, but what these two and many others in our community continue to demonstrate is like, this isn't what I asked for, but I'm being given what I need to walk over this mountain, to walk through this valley. It's never written anywhere in our founding text that we're not going to experience loss and illness, that we're not going to struggle and even suffer once we've gotten our life on a spiritual path. Once you come to Unity Church, no more of that. No, that's not in the plan. But what is in the plan is that when we seek to live our lives based upon spiritual principles, then whatever has occurred in the realm of condition, whether that be an illness or a financial setback or a relationship that has ended, whatever that is, we can trust that we are given what we need. And not only to get through it, but to grow through it. You know, people who have experienced loss and who have really done the work of grief, they describe it, this is a hole in my heart that will never close over, but my heart grows bigger around it. I become bigger, I become stronger, I become more loving, more able to be who God has created me to be because of walking through that kind of a circumstance. In the Gospel of John, Jesus says to his disciples, Chapter 16, verse 33, I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world. In the Gospel of John, we know it is the most metaphysical of the four canonical Gospels, and so whenever Jesus makes an I statement, It's not just that master rabbi who lived 2,000 years ago in the Galilee area in the Middle East. It's not just Jesus, the man, saying it. It is the universal Christ consciousness saying it, which is present in us if we're willing and open to access it. That you can take peace. You can have peace no matter what's going on. And know this, that in this world you will have trouble. That's just universal. The Bible also says that the rain falls on the just and the unjust alike. Every person's going to go through something. But take heart. The I am presence, the creative impulse of life itself, divine creative intelligence, has overcome the world. And that creative power of healing and overcoming is in you right now. And I don't know what it is that you're currently having trouble in this world over, but right now, you have overcome the world. And all we have to do is release our attachment to the world of form and drop down into that wide open, spacious consciousness of the indwelling Christ presence. That's it. Okay, let's go home. Let's do that. It's the truth, though. It's already here. It's already in you. There are people who just simply have spontaneous awakenings to the Christ consciousness within them, and they heal their bodies, and some of us need a little bit more educational variety. I would be one of those. For me, it is a continuous practice of prayer and meditation, spiritual study, working with mentors, teachers, therapists, counselors, all of these sorts of things that I have to do to, not to grow my Christ consciousness, but to access it. That the mind that was in Christ Jesus, let it also be in you, is what Scripture says. It's already in you. And the mind that was in Buddha is also in you. But how do we open to it? That's where we seek to. That's what our teaching is all about. This is a teaching of creativity and transformation through spiritual practice and principle. That's what we offer in Unity. That we've been doing it for 150 years, or 140 years, whatever it is, 130 years. 1890, I think, is what we mark as the beginning of our movement. That we know that when we know that we know that God is already alive and moving and living within us, then it cannot help but demonstrate into transforming our lives at every level. This is kind of like the great secret of life that's not a secret. It's in thousands of books. It's been delivered by thousands of ministers and teachers for centuries. It's not really a secret, except we go, really? Is that true? Every moment you find yourself having trouble, every single moment, you stand before two doors. Every single moment that you're having trouble in this world, as Jesus told us we would, we stand before two doors. We can either go, yep, I'm having trouble. That's one door, and then I'm there at the level of condition. Or we can open the other door, which is, I have overcome the world. I have overcome the world. And this is a little bit of mature metaphysics. Because when I was new in this teaching 20 years ago, 30 years ago, I thought, well, if what you're telling me is true, I can just do an affirmation and I can just change everything instantly and I don't have to do all this. I don't know why this has taken y'all so long. You're clearly slow. And I have joked before that I'm a very quick study about anything that matters. It takes me a while to shift my mind around something that is really important. And this is what I have come to see. That part of me still thinks nothing bad ought to happen to me. Yeah, part of anybody else part of the Why Me Club? Yeah. Why is this happening to me? That's often my first response to the inevitable, you will have trouble in this world. That's my response. The second place I go is, what have I done to call this into my experience? Where did I go wrong? Where did I screw up the karmic laws? Well, and honestly, that's the place where I'm most prone. That's the groove that is in my mind that goes, I'm going to look for someone and something to blame. And it's usually me. Usually. Not always. Sometimes I have a few other people I like to throw in that mix. You know what? And this is not true. I love my mother, but you know what therapists always say? If it's not one thing, it's your mother. So that's still going in that first door of having trouble in the world when I'm seeking to assign blame for it. But what we can do is when we go in through the second door of I have overcome the world, what we can do is I didn't call this into being. Even if I did, I don't care. I didn't make this bad situation. What I'm going to now declare with the power of the Christ mind within me, with the universal intelligence, I'm going to say, good must come from this. And to stand in faith, knowing it has to happen. Why? Because I said so. Not the I that is always looking to blame, but the I that is the I am. That's what I'm talking about. This is not what I asked for. It was not in my notes to God. Here it is. Good must come from this. And to declare it, to speak it, to live in it. And here is the thing. Sometimes the good is not going to come in the format in which you outlined. It's just not. The ego wants to just get it all attached and just tell God exactly how to do it and all that, but your soul just wants to express and experience spiritual freedom. And it can come in a lot of ways. That career fell apart? Okay, no problem. I'm going to go do this now. But we get attached, do we not, to our 401ks and all the senses of earthly security. But the soul is open to finding the freedom of God, to letting the good come from the situation we never asked for and never wanted and tried to blame people for. The soul is open to, yes, let the good come. And here's the other thing I have to tell you, that this attachment, this resistance to what is, that's what's keeping you from the good. That when we can let go, when we can, as I was taught in 12 steps, to live life, to wear life as a loose garment. No attachment. Let it come, let it go. All form is temporary. I mean, they told me that a long time ago, and I'm still resistant to that one. When it's a particular form that I love, I don't want that one to go away. Ted Lasso is over. I'm grieving. If you haven't watched Ted Lasso, you have to be okay with some F-bombs, but I'm telling you, so spiritual, so beautiful. Anyway, but I digress. But yeah, I do get attached to form. But when I can declare, good must come from this, and then be open to letting the universe reveal that good to me. Be open to seeing good that is beyond the outline that I already came up with. Then we can move to new and greater experiences of who we already are. Our consciousness grows. I joked to the staff, I didn't joke, I was kind of telling the truth, that a few weeks ago I was saying, if I had known how hard this job was, I probably wouldn't have said yes. And the person who said yes to this job couldn't do it. He wasn't ready. But over this last 5.5 years with Hurricane Harvey, with the pandemic, with all the changes that we've seen here, guess what? I've had to let go of my attachment. I let Spirit change and redirect my awareness and my consciousness. I've grown. I'm stronger now. I'm more equipped. I'm more evolved and mature now than I was 5.5 years ago. So this is not the path I would have taken, global pandemic and Category 5 hurricane. No, that's not the curriculum that I set in place. But it's what occurred. And I've been willing to, mostly, to let go of my attachment and let God teach me how to be who he's called me to be, who God has called me to be. So there are two errors of understanding that come to us in terms of suffering and struggle in this world. Let's go back to that first part, that you will have trouble in the world. This comes from the work of Philip Yancey, who is actually a Catholic writer, but he has wonderful, very compassionate understanding of spiritual principle and the human experience. He has a book called Where is God When It Hurts? Isn't that a great title? And that book is based upon a study of the book of Job in the Hebrew Scriptures. And that is a long story. A lot of suffering and struggle and a lot of philosophical conversations about why there's struggling and suffering in the world. But it really comes down to, are you going to trust God or not? And is God worthy of your trust? Even though the things that you thought you had to be happy are gone, can you still find trust and faith? So Yancey says there are two errors in understanding suffering in spiritual terms. The first error comes when we attribute all suffering to God, and we see it as a punishment for our own mistakes. This is an error, that we think God causes us to suffer. This is that old idea of that person in the sky with a list, checking it twice, finding out who's naughty or nice. Can you see the parallel there? And is going to punish those who did it wrong. That's not the God we teach in Unity. That is not what we're talking about here. The second error it does the opposite. It assumes that life with God will never include suffering. So, as Jesus said, you will have trouble in this world, but fear not. Take heart. I have overcome the world. The divine creative intelligence in you knows how to move through this. If you'll get as I love what Emerson says, if I get my bloated nothingness out of the way and allow divine, spiritual, intuitive thinking and feeling to use me now, because I will tell you this too, some of our attachment is very ego-based, and when it does get shaken and taken from us, it's exactly what we need. It's exactly what we need so that we can be available to God again. And here's the last thing I want to kind of talk about today, is that the trouble that we're going to have in this world, it's your curriculum. And it's uniquely created just for you. I know. I love you, Bobby. It is. It is. The things that you're experiencing and the trouble you're having in this world is your soul's curriculum. And again, not saying that you're causing the bad things to happen, but now that it's here, this is yours to learn. This is yours to heal. This is yours to grow from. One of my wonderful mentors in seminary, Reverend Dr. Kathy Hearn, she used to say this, and she said it often. She says, make no mistake, every minister will conform about them the exact community that they need for their own healing. Thank you. It's really true. You know, and I have, you would not know what it's like. I mean, when I was in seminary, I did not know that at one point someone would stand in the middle of the balcony and shoot me the bird during the middle of my sermon. That happened. It happened. It was like, wow. There was no class for this. And that's what I remembered, Reverend Dr. Kathy saying, make no mistake. This is for your growth. This is for your growth. You see, I was trained as a people pleaser. And my biggest fear is to disappoint people. Man, have I disappointed you. Maybe not you individually, but as a community. I've made a lot of mistakes, and I continue to not always get it right. And for whatever reason, sometimes even the right decisions I make look like the wrong decisions to some people. And I have learned to bear the disappointment of others as part of my spiritual growth. I don't like it, but I have learned that this is part of my curriculum. This is part of my soul's curriculum. is to bear, I mean, really, I would just want to make you happy at all costs to myself and anyone. And that, as you probably have guessed, is something called codependence, which is not spiritual health. I've been on a lifelong journey of healing this, and this job has accelerated that quite a bit. Thank you. And that's the way it works. That, as I mentioned, that the person who said yes to this job, however many years ago it was, that Howard told me that he had selected me as his successor, and then the person who stands here today, it's not the same person, that I have been changed by the journey. In the wonderful metaphysics of the Exodus story, I don't know if you remember this part, but the children of Israel that left Egypt, who left bondage, were headed towards the promised land. None of those original people were able to cross over into the promised land. It was the next generation. The 40 years in the desert, in the wilderness of wandering, that 40 is always, in Jewish numerology, it symbolizes the time needed for transformation. And so what it means is that the one of you that said yes to the journey is not the one who steps into the promise. Consciousness must shift. You've got to become bigger, wider, deeper, and the time that looks like wandering around in the desert is actually the time of healing and transformation. I think I almost had to give up my gay minister card because last week I did not talk about Tina Turner. So I'm going to make amends to you right now. And I want to talk about Tina Turner. What an amazing soul. What an amazing soul. 1984, I was on a high school senior trip in Dallas, Texas. We'd gone to Six Flags. We'd gone to a Rangers game. And we had some extra money, and they go like, oh, Lionel Richie's in town. Do y'all want to go see Lionel Richie? We're like, sure. So we got nosebleed seats at Reunion Arena in downtown Dallas to see Lionel Richie, 1984. I was 18 years old. And the opening act was somebody named Tina Turner. It was the beginning of the comeback. And I remember being way up in the nosebleed, and it was like, and I kind of knew she was this old kind of rock and roll R&B singer from the 60s, but I didn't really know her. She blew my hair off. I mean, my goodness, the power of her performance. Incredible. Incredible. So I became a lifelong fan from that moment and just loved watching her star rise in the 80s. You know, just watching, she went from, doing the small room at the Fairmont in San Francisco, doing 2 shows on a Saturday night to selling out arenas for 180,000 people. So I'm sure some of you have seen the movie with Angela Bassett, What's Love Got to Do with It. There's a wonderful HBO documentary about her life that was just about 3 years old. You know that she went through some stuff. She was the daughter of a sharecropper in Nutbush, Tennessee. She wasn't wanted. That's what she would talk about, that never in her life was she wanted, honored for just being who she was. When her mother left, it was a hard life, trying to raise these kids on this, just trying to subsistence living. The mom left. The dad said he couldn't do it either. He left too. They abandoned the kids. She's, different family members tried to step in, but she was, again, left with this feeling of unwanted. But she sang in church, and then there was this young, skinny singer in St. Louis named Ike Turner, and she said, I thought he was the ugliest man I ever saw. But I wanted to sing with him. And then Ike, to his credit, and she does say that in the beginning, he was good to her. And he gave her opportunity. He gave her the name. She went from Anna Mae Bullock to Tina Turner. And something happened in that experience where he knew how to take her unusual, gravelly, powerful voice and find the right music. And left a good job in the city. I mean, my goodness. Could anyone sing Proud Mary except Tina Turner? Incredible. Many of you know the story. The relationship became quite abusive. There was drug abuse involved. 16 years. I said it's 40 years to wander the desert and the wilderness to transformation. It was 16 years for her. And at one point, she had discovered Buddhism, began to chant that was her way to align with the I am, the I that has overcome the world, to find that energy of connection. And she began to transform her consciousness. She started fighting back physically, part of the journey. We don't condone violence, the epidemic of domestic violence is nothing new, but it's something that I'm so incredibly grateful for Tina Turner. She almost didn't talk about it. After she left that marriage and was struggling to put food on the table for her kids, didn't know how she was going to do it, she almost didn't tell the story. But something within her said, you know what? I have to tell this story. She said this, which I just love. This is many years later. Oh, come on. Work with me, iPad. I think I'll remember it. She said this, my legacy is that I never gave up. That from the beginning to the end, I trusted that thing in me that I knew was special. She made a lot of mistakes on the way, but she was true to that. And then became this tremendous force in the music world and beyond. The power, the icon that she's become for women who have gone through domestic abuse. It's incredible. I don't know that I could follow Tina Turner's curriculum of soul discovery, but she did. I don't know what your curriculum is for you to get in touch with who God has really called you to be. But I do know that there's something that stands in the way of that in your life. And it's probably your biggest problem. Mary Morrissey often says, you have a biggest problem. So I don't have to know what it is, but I do know this, that your biggest problem is the way that God is seeking to become real in your life. So whatever your curriculum of your soul's becoming is, I encourage you to say yes. To let go of your attachment. You know, and I'm gonna swear, it's a 3-letter word, not a 4-letter word, but I'm gonna say it anyway. I've said it before and I didn't get fired, so I'm gonna try it again. You can't save your ass and your face at the same time. Do you get me? You're trying to make it all look good. Spiritual transformation doesn't always look good. It can be quite ugly. And yet, if you will find that faith, like Tina did, in that essence of who she was, that she was going to continue to give it room to breathe and give it opportunities to grow and reveal itself, you can be your own Tina Turner. Hey! I love that. All right. Well, I can't get to my quotes today, so I guess I'm going to let it go. I do want to say one more thing, and I'm a little bit over time. June is Pride Month, and I want to just acknowledge how grateful I am to be in a spiritual tradition that has long supported and celebrated its LGBTQ members. I would never have been able to become a minister in some of the other churches I used to be a part of. And I do want to make a point right now of saying that I think particularly since marriage equality, I think gay men and lesbians have sort of gotten a pass in society in ways, and a lot of the old hatred is now directed perfectly, squarely at trans people. And I just want to say that Unity stands with its trans brothers and sisters, 100%. Absolutely. That we have trans men and women in this community who are serving at the highest levels and from the deepest hearts. And I just want you to know your Unity family loves you. We have your back and you're a part of us. So thank you for that. And on that note, let's pray. Taking a moment to just feel that indwelling presence, the I am within us. that knows how to handle every mountain, that knows how to walk through every valley, that trusts that the mountains and the valleys are here for our soul's becoming. We say yes to each of us individually and collectively to being the greater good that God needs now in our world, to being the voices of courage and connection, to being those who are willing to stand up for truth, for justice, for love, and to simply shine the light that we are, the way we are created and intended to be. We are here to shine, and so we say yes. So I speak a word of transformation for every person who is currently in the dark night of the soul, who is currently unable to see their own light. We know that it is there. We call it forward. For those who are stuck in old wounds of judgment and bitterness, what I see is a new day of freedom is coming upon them now. This is a time for us to come together with open hearts, with open minds, to love one another as we raise the consciousness of all humanity to shine, to shine. So I give thanks that this is so. I give thanks for this incredible community that has nurtured and grown so many of us to be all that we can be. We let it be, and so it is. Amen. So if no one has told you today that they love you, I love you. God bless you. Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.